This video only makes sense if we tell the story from the perspective of people who are already rich, because otherwise none of this will make sense and you'll just turn it off. So let me rewind the clock and tell you the story about one of the richest people who ever lived. I'm sure you've already heard the name, but John Paul Getty was named as the richest living American back in 1957, and his fortune had been made in the oil business, which his father has helped him get into. He'd managed to strike oil pretty early in his career and ended up becoming a millionaire in his early 20s. In fact, he'd have enough money to pretty much retire and do what he wanted, so that's exactly what he did. Sat back, relaxed, and enjoyed taking it all in. But after a couple of years, he went back into the business and really started to make some moves, eventually building up his fortune bigger and bigger. One of his biggest bets was made in Saudi Arabia, where he paid millions of dollars for the rights to drill oil in an area where no oil had been found before. It took a few years, but eventually oil was struck and Getty managed to cement himself as one of the greatest in the business, gradually buying other companies and creating the empire that still bears the name in some places today. Outside of business, though, is where John started to run into problems. Alongside multiple marriages, scandals, and settlements, the biggest story of his life would end up being the one to define him. The film All the Money in the World actually tells this story, and it's about the kidnapping of one of John Paul Getty's grandsons in Italy. The kidnappers tugged John Paul Getty III because they assumed that his grandfather would pay whatever the ransom they demanded, as they knew he had enough money to cover it. Without ruining the film too much and the details of the story, the kidnappers never got the $17 million they first asked for and ended up settling for a lot less, which became $3 million. Famously, Getty only paid $2.2 million of the $3 million because that was the largest amount that could be written off from his personal taxes. The other $800,000 was provided only as a loan to his son, but he made sure that there was a 4% interest payment attached to it. Getty was notoriously tight with his money, and clearly, even family had to pay the price. When his grandson was freed and tried to call to say thanks, Getty was reported to not want to come to the phone. Maybe it was his way of payback after his grandson had once made a joke once before about pretending to be kidnapped to extract money from his grandfather, but who knows. Anyway, the point is that even with all the money in the world, Getty was always worried about people wanting to get their hands on it, seemingly was never really happy, and if anything, having too much wealth was both a gift and a curse. You could argue that this behaviour was what got him rich in the first place, but it wasn't like he never spent a penny. He was a huge fan of art, and seemingly there was always a price he'd happily pay here, and this remains today in the famous Getty Center in Los Angeles. But how does this have anything to do with investing, you're probably sat there thinking? Well, I know it's not quite a billionaire scale, but when you look at investing, it's always sold from a perspective about getting rich. Whether it's videos on YouTube talking about the next 10x stock, you've got news articles saying if only you've invested $10,000 back in this stock in 1988, here's what you'd have now. Or even to the extreme saying, just give up coffee and avocado toast and you'll become a millionaire. It seems to me that investing is just portrayed as a way to get rich, and it's just all about money. There's no question about how much you actually need, what you might actually spend the money on, or totally ignoring the point that there's no point being super wealthy if you're at the end of your life. Surely you'd want to enjoy it, otherwise, what's the point? When we look at many of the richest people today, it seems like we've moved away from an era of just getting rich to now wanting to make sure that the wealth is given away. You might have heard of the Giving Pledge, which was started back in 2021 by Warren Buffett alongside Bill and Melinda Gates. In their own words, it's a movement of philanthropists who commit to give the majority of their wealth to charitable causes either during their lifetimes or in their wills. You can go and read the letters and sign pledges from loads of different people, probably lots you've never heard of too. Now, if your goal as an investor is to get rich, you might think that once you get rich, whatever that means, that you've made it and now finally your job is complete and you can finally be happy. But by the looks of things, this probably isn't going to work. Now, I know strictly speaking, a lot of the richest people in the world aren't investors like you or me who might want to just try and put some money away each month for the future, but I do think there's some lessons that we might be able to take away. I think if we look to the people who've already made it and won the game, we might be able to answer the question about why we invest in the first place, because if it's just money, why do all the richest people just want to give it away? I found this article from Forbes here showing some of the biggest givers from 2020, and something really surprised me on the list. Lots of famous givers here. We all know that Warren Buffett has pledged to give away most of his wealth and is really super charitable, similar to the likes of the Gateses, Bloomberg, Mackenzie Scott. But then one name stood out for me, Chuck Feeney, $2 million net worth, but a total lifetime giving of $8 billion. While other billionaires might give away a few billion and still have tens of billions left, this guy's done the opposite. There's got to be some lessons here. So what are we missing? So Feeney made his money by co-founding a huge business. You know those duty-free airport shops that you always walk through wherever you are in the world, and try and stop yourself buying oversized Toblerones or M&Ms? Well, yeah, that's his game. And he made billions from the business as they expanded around the world. Now you finally know where all of that spare holiday money went that you tried to get rid of. Anyway, it turns out that he actually inspired Buffett and Gates to start this whole pledge business, and his concept was called giving while living. And he started up a trust to give away almost all of his wealth before he passes away. And it looks like they've already done it. As of late in 2020, him and his wife can be seen here signing the pledge that marked the closing of their charity that had completed its mission to give billions away. So going back to our point, if money is the thing that solves all of our problems, this guy must have been really unhappy and been super stressed that he's got very little left when compared to what he did have. In truth, he couldn't be happier, and in his own words, it's a lot more fun to give while you live than give while you're dead. So then, if the richest people in the world seem miserable and afraid of people taking advantage of them, and then the super rich seem focused on giving money away, where does that leave people like you and me who are trying to invest like we've been told to do in the hope that someday we might have something of value that we can use? I think I might have found some part of the answer, and it was from a recent book that I managed to listen to an audio version of last week, which is recommended to me by many of you, called The Millionaire Next Door. This book is basically a study of hundreds of different millionaires in the US. It's a little dated, but I think the lessons are the most important part, and I'd almost bet that virtually nothing has changed except the amount spoken about in the book probably have gone a little bit higher. So the book really digs into what it means to be a millionaire, and that's the net worth millionaire. So you need that amount of wealth in total. So all of your assets combined minus any debts. So usually that's your house, pensions, investments, cash, etc. Take away mortgage, take away any debt. Now the book is really interesting because it asks these millionaire households hundreds of questions about how they spend and make their money, everything from what kind of house they live in, what car they drive, how much they spend on clothes, if they buy fancy watches, and also everything to do with their behaviours as well. Questions like, do they have a budget and do they spend time thinking and planning about their future finances? The answers, let me tell you, are just fascinating, and I don't want to spoil it too much. But in short, what I think you imagine as a millionaire is some flashy person driving around in a sports car is actually the complete opposite of the reality. The book has some great real-world examples, but let me just use one that really brings the point home. There's a part where the book talks about two households where the main earners are both highly qualified doctors, specialists in their field, both owning many hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Except, here's the catch. Their net worths are wildly different. In fact, check this out here. They call them Dr. North and Dr. South, South being the one where clearly his finances are going in the wrong direction. As you can see, they pay a similar amount of income tax, except the Norths have a net worth of $7.5 million compared to the Souths with just $400,000. What I think is crazy about that is the net worth is lower than his annual salary. So what has been going wrong here to cause this issue? Now, I don't think this will really surprise a lot of you, but really it all comes down to spending and how focused each household's been on building up their wealth in assets. As you can see from another page, here's the annual spending of the two households. The South spend a fortune on mortgage payments, cars, clothes, and lots of other expenses, pretty much 5 to 7 times more expenses in every single category. Now, what do you think that does in the long term to their net worths? It's not really a difficult question. Even with having the same incomes, the Souths have the fancy house, the fancy cars, all the toys, and just keep spending the more they earn. Whereas the Norths are the ones who pretty much keep their living down to a minimum, live in a regular house, and drive a used car. It's well worth a read this one, or a listen to as I did. I actually managed to get through it over a few different runs and a couple of sessions at the gym. I'll pop a link in the description for it. Definitely check that one out. Anyway, what I'm trying to show and explain pretty badly is that if you want to invest for the money, it's going to take a lot of sacrifice. You probably won't be able to live in the way you might expect, but it will pay off in the end. But if you do it just for the money and you aren't motivated by what the money can do for you and really find out what matters, then I can see why you'd easily just end up unhappy or you just won't bother. One thing the book doesn't really speak much about or a lot about is whether the people are happy and what it means to them to actually be happy with their wealth. I think that's maybe a whole different video. In the book, the word happy comes up just 4 times. I managed to check this with the PDF version. There doesn't seem to be a concrete answer for each person and what that means to them, but there is a clear bolded quote here that says, financially independent people are happier than those in the same income/age cohort who are not financially secure. Definitely a topic for another video then. Okay, so where does this leave us then, and what should we invest for? Is there point in being 80 years old and having all the money in the world like Getty did? Is the answer to give it all away once you make it all like the super rich are doing, including Warren Buffett and Bill Gates? Or is the answer to live as if you don't have any extra money and just keep everything down to a bare minimum? Well, Here's the most important part of the video, so listen up. Don't invest for the money. What you really want to invest for is